The numbers are coming in. Over 3,000 strikes across Iran, 43 warships destroyed, and an 83% decrease in Iran's drone attacks after launch sites were crippled all across the country. But the biggest news is that the US has annihilated Iran's secret bunkers. Iran thought those bunkers were safe, but the illusion has been shattered. The bunkers are caving in on themselves. And to make it happen, the US used unstoppable bunker busters that erased Iran's underground caves from the maps. The US tactic has been simple and effective. Take out the bunkers and you ruin Iran's ability to fight back. Using its array of bombers with the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber as the star of the show, the US has ruined Iran's vast missile cities, crippling its ability to use the most powerful weapon in its arsenal to fight back. The underground storage and launch sites that Iran spent years building ended up becoming a huge weakness, as you'll discover if you keep watching. But before we get to that, comments made by Admiral Brad Cooper, head of Central Command, revealed just how devastating the US attacks against Iran's secret bunkers have been. In the last hour, 2 US bombers dropped dozens of 2,000-pound penetrator bombs targeting deeply buried ballistic missile launchers, Cooper proclaimed on March 5th. He added that the US is following the direct orders of President Donald Trump to raise Iran's entire missile capability to the ground, adding, "The president gave us another task to raise or level Iran's ballistic missile industrial base, so we're not just hitting what they have or destroying their ability to rebuild. This is the systematic destruction of an entire military doctrine." Iran thought that its huge stockpiles of ballistic missiles, which the IDF estimates sat at around 2,500 on March 1st, would be enough. Iran was wrong. It's losing its missiles, its launching sites, and based on Cooper's comments, its manufacturing capacity is going to be the next to go. And it's all due to the terrifying bunker buster bombs the US has used to penetrate deep into Iran's missile cities, to destroy everything that made them useful to Iran. Okay. Let's zoom in on the bomb for a moment. So, Cooper doesn't mention any specifics about the bomb beyond its weight and the fact that it's being used to penetrate deep into Iran's missile sites to take them out of the mission. From those 2 pieces of information, we can surmise that the bombs in question are likely Blue 109s, possibly launched at Iran's secret bunkers after being attached to GBU-31 Joint Direct Attack munitions, which are GPS-guided bomb kits that convert dumb bombs into precision weapons. This specific configuration allows America's bombers to attack Iran's bases from a distance of up to 15 miles, allowing for bombers that don't have stealth capabilities to fire off their payloads and escape before the shattered remnants of Iran's air defenses have a chance to respond. As for the Blue 109 itself, the bomb weighs about 2,000 pounds, just as Cooper says, and it's built using a case made of steel alloy, which has been specifically designed to allow the bomb to penetrate and kill hardened targets. Once inside, the bomb unleashes its high-explosive blast fragmentation warhead, which ruins anything in its path and creates a big crater to allow for follow-up attacks. Perhaps using more Blue 109s, or if the bomb penetrated deep enough the first time round, other munitions that can turn what was already a devastating explosion into the total ruination of an underground missile site. We've seen what these bombs can do before. On February 7, 2025, the Warzone reported on the use of a Blue 109 warhead strapped onto a GB-31, which had killed Hezbollah's then leader, Hassan Nasrallah, along with several of his officials. Israel, which carried out the strike, had identified an underground bunker that these Hezbollah leaders were using to coordinate their fight against Israel. All it took was a Blue 109 that penetrated in a heartbeat upon striking to take Nasrallah out. There was even a video of the strike shared by the OSIN Defender X account, which shows the bomb penetrated so efficiently before exploding that nearby civilians actually survived the attack. This is what the US unleashed on Iran's secret bunkers, likely in numbers so massive that those bunkers had no chance of surviving. How has the US pulled this off again and again? There is an insane and fatal flaw built into the missile cities that Iran has created, which makes these strikes possible at the scale that the US has been pulling them off. So, stick with us to find out what that flaw is. Before we get to that, it's worth exploring the concept of a missile city. as it's an idea that is somewhat unique to Iran, and it formed the spine of the country's strategy of saturating an enemy with missile strikes if Iran's regime ever came under threat. Iran's regime loved its missile cities. It was so confident in them that it even provided a video tour of one of the facilities, seemingly overconfident in the idea that nobody would be able to touch them. The Foundation for Defense of Democracies reported on this back in March 2025, just under a year from when the US would show Iran why having an ego about your secret underground facilities is a very bad idea. The video that Iran released was the fourth of its kind, and it showed off how Iran was storing medium-range ballistic missiles such as the Hajj Qasem and the Gad-H, which have ranges that hover around the 1,000-mile mark. Land attack cruise missiles were also shown off, as was the vast network of tunnels that Iran had built underground to enable the transportation and storage of its massive missile stockpiles. This was a power play by Iran, one that is quite literally blown up in its face. What Iran never seemed to realize as it showed off its secret underground facilities to the world is that what it was really doing was revealing the single largest vulnerability in its entire military doctrine. Decades of work was put into the construction of these bunkers, the Wall Street Journal said, in a March 5th examination of where it all went wrong for Iran. And it's taken about a week of Iran's war with the US and Israel to reveal that they aren't, and perhaps never were, the key to victory that Iran's regime thought they would be. The situation right now proves it. Israeli and US intelligence have easily been able to figure out where these so-called secret bunkers are. After all, it's difficult to hide the construction of roads leading to a surprisingly sparse site. Satellite images can capture the transportation of missiles and personnel to and from these bunkers. These were flaws in their own right, though not the fatal one we reveal soon, because they allowed Iran's enemies to watch and wait. Vulnerabilities were picked out, and when the time came, strikes were launched that featured such massive penetrative power that the missile cities of which Iran was so proud have become almost non-factors in the war. US and Israeli warplanes and armed drones are circling over dozens of cavernous bases, striking missile-carrying launchers when they emerge to fire. Meanwhile, waves of heavy bombers have dropped munitions on the sites, apparently entombing the Iranian weapons below ground in some locations. The Wall Street Journal reports of the situation that we're seeing right now. Iran's air defenses seem to be non-existent, and as for the bunkers themselves, they have been turned into death traps. Entrances and exits have been blown to pieces by US bunker-busting bombs. The 2,000 lb Blue 109s, though not powerful enough to penetrate deep into the missile cities themselves, have proven themselves more than enough to collapse the tunnels leading into these underground bunkers, as well as strong enough to take out the missile launch sites that have to be at least somewhat close to the surface to enable Iran to launch its ballistic missiles at targets. Iran never seemed to account for the fact that an underground bunker is only useful as long as there exist secret ways to get in and out of that bunker. These ways aren't secret. The US has used its bunker busters to shut them down, leaving Iranian military personnel and their missiles entombed inside these cities that were supposed to be Iran's game changer. The scale of the damage that the US has caused is already being revealed in satellite images that are circulating throughout mainstream media. On March 3rd, the New York Times published a piece showcasing before and after pictures of several of Iran's bunkers and key missile sites. One of these sites, located near Isfahan, had been razed to the ground by March 3rd. In Kangava, the entrance to an underground facility had been completely caved in by March 2nd. In Kaman Shah, above-ground buildings had been destroyed by March the 2nd, with the photograph captured on that date also revealing a telltale crater right by the tunnel entrances to the region's missile city. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what happened there as another penetrator plunged into the ground and collapsed the tunnel. This is the story that has played out time and again in Iran. And it's happened because of the fatal flaw that we mentioned earlier. This flaw has changed everything for Iran by transforming its master plan into a weakness so predictable in hindsight that it's almost laughable. And by the way, if this is the kind of insight that you want more of, make sure you subscribe to the Military Show. We break it down like this every single week. Now, the fatal flaw. The error that is so simple that it's allowed the US to use its bunker busters with abandon to Iran's entire war strategy. What is it? In short, the missile cities, as impressive as Iran believed them to be, have stripped away all of the mobility from Iran's missile strategy. Sam Lyer, who is a research associate at the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies, spells it out for the Wall Street Journal. What was once mobile and difficult to find is no longer mobile and easier to hit, Lyer says. And what this means is that Iran's missile cities, which each host potentially hundreds of ballistic missiles along with the launchers needed to fire, have become sitting ducks for the US. Once the locations of these underground bunkers have been revealed, and it's clear that both the US and Israel knew where they were long before they launched their joint operation, then Iran is out of options. What can it do other than sit there and take what the US delivers? Bunker buster after bunker buster has been launched at these sites, because the US knows that Iran has left itself with nowhere to go. It's not like Iran can try to transport launches out of these cities now that the US and its warplanes are on the prowl. Even the exits and entrances that haven't been caved in aren't safe. As soon as a missile leaves, a bomb is going to follow shortly after. Satellites are watching and capturing photos constantly. So, Iran's only option is to leave its people and missiles entombed in the very facilities that it thought would be the keys to winning any war. Iran had planned to carry out saturation strikes from its missile cities. Now, it's been severely limited in what it can do against the constant bombardments being unleashed upon it by the US and Israel. It's this one fatal flaw that has allowed the US to carry out a wave-based strike strategy, as explained by former US Army missile specialist Colin David. These attacks are being carried out in waves where they destroy 2 or 3 targets at a time. After multiple waves, the bases lose their effectiveness due to the loss of surface structures and launchers. David says Iran's secret bunkers can't move. They're also clearly not as secret as Iran thought they were. Over and over, the US strikes, with each wave of attacks crumbling more tunnels, buildings, and missile launch sites, and it gets even worse for Iran. Less than 2 weeks into the war, the US now finds itself with the luxury of time on its hands. That time exists because the US isn't just systematically destroying Iran's secret missile bunkers, it has also dismantled Iran's entire air defense network, which allows its bombers and fighter jets to fly practically unimpeded in Iranian airspace. According to the media line, the IDF's chief of staff, Lieutenant General Ayel Zamer, claims that roughly 80% of Iran's air defense systems have been taken out of the mission, which has allowed the US and Israel to penetrate even deeper into the country. The Iranian capital city of Tehran is now vulnerable to any strikes that the Allies want to carry out. And the same can be said of the missile cities that have already been hit hard. What this means is that more waves far beyond what we've already seen will be coming. Any of Iran's bunkers that have managed to survive the onslaught so far are staring at a ticking clock. The US can hit at any time, and the best that Iran can do now is hope that its increasingly isolated surface-to-air missile launchers can get lucky with potshots. The Wall Street Journal adds this loss of Iran's air defense systems has created another problem for its secret bunkers. Now America's slow surveillance aircraft can fly over much of Iran without worrying about missiles flying their way. Surveillance leads to yet more intelligence coming America's way, which it can use to target more of Iran's missile sites in future waves. The so-called safe bunkers have been shattered, utterly annihilated with wave after wave of devastating 2,000 Labi penetrator bombs that the US can now drop at any time and anywhere. And even this early into the war, it's becoming clear just how much of an impact this is all having on Iran's plans to saturate targets with missiles. Take Iran's launchers for instance. Tucked away in the missile cities, these launches are being rendered useless, either because they're being destroyed directly, or due to being entombed in the cavernous tunnels that Iran built to protect them. Within the first 24 hours of the US and Israel launching their joint strikes, about half of Iran's missile launches have been taken out of commission. The New York Times reports this was all part of the plan. Before Iran even had a chance to register what was happening, the US snatched away half of what Iran's regime thought it would be able to use in its saturation strategy. By March 8, reports suggested that around 70% of Iran's missile launchers have been taken out of commission, with each lost launcher whittling away at Iran's ability to fire missile barges at American bases or Israel. Iran's missile launches are now much more limited, and as you'll find out in a moment, each of the launches that Iran attempts now carries an immense amount of risk. The collapse of Iran's missile strategy is outlined in a March 10th piece by the Jerusalem Post. It says that Iran carried out 480 missile launches on February 28, which we can now put down to Iran desperately trying to rattle off whatever it could, as America's bunker busters took away its capacity to launch in large volumes. By March 9th, Iran was down to 40 missile launches per day, which the outlet says is a decline of 92% from the February 28th peak. This isn't by choice for Iran. We've seen a similar decline in drone launches from 720 per day to just 60 as a tidal wave of strikes has shattered the launch network that formed the backbone of Iran's entire strategy. Interestingly, the same outlet points out that we saw something similar during the 12-day war between Iran and Israel in the summer of 2025, when Iran's missile launch rate fell from 100 per day to about 5 in the span of 9 days. Perhaps this means that Iran's missile stockpiles aren't as massive as the country wanted the world to believe. That doesn't really matter when so many of Iran's launches have been taken out of mission. A moment ago, we mentioned the risk involved in all of Iran's launches from now on. What we mean by this is that the US and its bunker busters haven't gone away. Neither have the surveillance aircraft, which are constantly scanning for signs of missile launches. As soon as a launch is made, the US strikes. According to Trump, the US just needs 4 minutes from recording a launch to sending a bomber with a bunker buster to take the launch site out forever. That doesn't leave a lot of time for Iran to get its launches back into cover. And even if 4 minutes is enough, the US strike will ruin whatever opening was used for Iran's missile launch, stripping away yet another of the Iranian regime's severely limited options. Iran doesn't have the option of using underground silos for its missile launchers, as demonstrated by most of its launches being conducted via mobile launchers that have to be brought out into the open. Iran tried to build that capability. There are crude silos dotted around the country, the Wall Street Journal reports, but these so-called silos are little more than holes that Iran has dug into the sides of mountains that point out into the Persian Gulf region. They're easily taken out by the bunker busters, and even if they weren't, they're limited in scope because of how they're built. Now all Iran can do is hope to survive. Each passing day brings with it news of yet more US and Israeli strikes. Missile launches are down and dropping off with every bomb that the US launches. Iran thought it was being clever when it built massive underground networks of missile cities, but all it really did was create massive unmoving targets that are going to be hit over and over until Iran loses the one weapon that gave it some form of leverage in this war. What the US is sending Iran's way is unstoppable. Any illusion of Iranian power is gone. Iran's regime is collapsing alongside its missile threat, and that's bad news for a man who wanted to create a new axis of power with himself at the helm. Vladimir Putin can only watch on as the Iranian regime crumbles, taking with it all his plans for the Middle East. If you want to find out why what's happening in Iran is terrible for Russia, check out our video. And if you like this video, make sure you're subscribed to the Military Show as we cover the latest developments in Operation Epic Fury. And thank you for watching.